remember when you were a child? Just playing. Couldn't resist that. That's like ring light. But I do want to talk about memory. So, yay. Not too bad. All right. So, memory. I'm going to deviate a little bit from my Atheist Teaches the Bible series, and this is going to delve a little bit more into my Off the Deep End series, but this is a really important concept to understand. And the more I thought about the Atheist Teaches the Bible series and thought about getting into, you know, the Bible and mysticism and some of these sorts of things, and the Kabbalion, it just seemed like this is going to be an idea that needs to be fundamental to those studies. Now, I will say that this is strictly my hypothesis of what memory is. And it's based on my experience through meditation, my experience through psychedelics, readings that I've done over the years, readings as in, you know, reading scientific research, things like that, you know, videos and just kind of like studying this kind of thing. I got the idea probably in 2012, 2013 was the first time I kind of had that aha moment. And so I started studying the brain, started studying memory, and, you know, trying to figure out how that kind of thing worked together. And it took me a while. And I had like the central idea. And then after I got out of the military, I was struggling with PTSD, and I'd done a lot of research on the effects of psychedelics. So, and I was on medication. I was really struggling with depression. So I went and got me a heroic dose. And this is one of the things that came out of that experience, was a deeper understanding of what memory is. So I know there's red flags all over the place. So for hard science folks, okay, you got me. But it's one of those ideas that it fits in really nicely. It dovetails really nicely with my theory of light and gravity. It fits in nicely with my ideas about space-time. And it just dovetails so perfectly. And it also solves a lot of problems that we've had with memory. So for that reason, I'm going to keep pushing it, you know, and share this with folks. So, and by all means, you know, if you know somebody who studies memory, who studies the mind, anything like that, then certainly pass this along, because I would love to see some research about this. How they could do the research on this, I can't even imagine, but this is an important topic to talk about, especially as you start to see the concept and where it's going. We're going to run into some problems in the not too distant future if we don't have a really good understanding of what memory actually is. So at the end, after I've described it all, I'll go into the challenges this poses for future research and space travel, and, you know, our understanding of reality and how we can move forward as a species. So without further ado, oh, and in a minute, you're going to get to see my whiteboard. That's always exciting. Who doesn't love whiteboards? So let me ask you this. Where do you think memories are stored? I know for most folks, they think in my head, because that's where I see the memories. You know, that's where things unfold. You know, if you watch my last video where I talked about the, you know, why God is referred to in the masculine, you know, I talked about remembering your first day of school, and I talked about my first day of kindergarten. And I also did a little exercise there where part of what I was trying to demonstrate with that memory exercise was your ability to access the unified field, or the quantum field, or the subconscious realm, or however it is that you understand that, okay? But I believe that the unified field is probably the most accurate terminology for that. And the reason being is that it's something that is, in a way, external to the body, okay? So I'll get into that a little bit more, but for now, let's just say that it's in a way external to the body. So I think that the term unified field is the most accurate. Now, one of the things that, so here's my hypothesis in a nutshell, is that I don't believe that memories are actually stored inside the brain. I believe that the brain is a processing center for memories, and that memories are actually stored within your own energy toroidal field. And I know to some folks that's going to sound a little bit woo-woo, but they've actually done some very, very good research into the energy field that we put out. And from an evolutionary perspective, this has been a huge benefit to us because so in the New Age and, you know, in the spiritualist movements, they may call it like an aura, but it's a measurable energy field that's out there. If you go look at the work of Joe Dispenza, he does a lot of work measuring the energy that people radiate from themselves and finding different balances within it and getting it tuned back up through meditation and these other sorts of things. Some really interesting work on that. And a Cliff Notes version of that is that you have an energy field that goes out about a foot from you, and then it goes out about 3 feet from you, and then it goes out about 9 feet from you, and then it goes out about 50 feet from you, okay? There's lots of variations, but if we're just visualizing, I just want you to picture the 1, 3, 9, and 50, okay? But what that is, it's like a toroidal, and I'll get over to the whiteboard in just a second. It's like a toroidal field that's circulating all the way around your body. And my hypothesis is that the memories are actually stored within that toroidal field. And what your brain is doing is it links together different synapses and it creates different electrical currents within the mind, which tune into a frequency. And so every time an event happens to you, it gets written in a frequency. Like I'm doing it right now. I'm tying together, you know, connections in my head, and each one of those connections is creating an electrical signal, just like you're writing on a hard drive, you know, if you will, if you're familiar with computers. Just the same way that you're writing on a hard drive. My brain is constantly, cycling that information through and writing that to the energy field hard drive that's all the way around me, right? And then if I need to access that, the brain sets up different impulses and smells and different connections that serve as a reminder to get back to that specific memory frequency. So you're tuning in a radio, and it tunes the mind into that specific energy frequency. And once it hits that frequency, then the memory that's cycling through in your toroidal field pops up on your memory screen, okay? So it's just like you do like a Google search. You type in some words into your keyboard, and Google goes and says, oh, you're looking for that. And it says, you know, it finds the exact combination of ones and zeros and says, oh, you're looking for this. So you say, like, I need the weather in Boston, Massachusetts. And Google goes out and says, weather in Boston, Massachusetts. And in the code, it's all just ones and zeros, but it brings it back and says, here's the weather for Boston, Massachusetts. So it's basically that same kind of principle. But the mistake that we've made is thinking that the memory is actually stored inside the brain. Now, one of the interesting things, sorry, I got a notification that's bugging me. One of the interesting things that has come up that got me thinking about this actually was the fact that there was And there have been other cases like this too, where there was a man, I think it was a man, who suffered some brain damage. And he suffered some brain damage and lost part of his brain where scientists had believed that certain types of memories were stored. And yet he lost that part of his brain, and yet he would still be able to retain the memory. And it kind of got them thinking that, maybe memory is stored in different places around the brain, and maybe it's like a hard drive where, like, if you know about your hard drive, if you have a single Word document, it's not stored in one place. Like, you couldn't like open up your hard drive and like scroll to a certain place and find a Microsoft Word document or a photograph or something like that. Okay, all the information, like if you have a photograph that's stored in your hard drive, it's stored in different places throughout the hard drive, right? Because remember, your hard drive's always spinning, and you have the thing that's like writing stuff back and forth. So when it's writing it, it's kind of like scattering it all over the place. But what your computer does is it remembers like the speed of the hard drive and the general location and the file type, and there's like all these other sorts of things, so that when it has to go and recall that, it doesn't just zoom to a certain place and find it. It zooms all the way around looking for a pattern and then retrieves that and gives that to you. So that we're using that same kind of concept with our brain, right? Only far more advanced. So I think now's a good time to switch over to the whiteboard. So come on, let's go. I'm right back. Okay, I'm back. Whiteboard time. Yeah, it's the same day. I just put on a shirt. But okay, so for folks who aren't yet familiar with the toroidal field, okay, so what I'm talking about is, if you can imagine like a donut, okay? And in the middle of the donut, you get the shape that comes down in the top, and it kind of comes down here. So that's kind of your basic toroidal field, right? And in this, like, energy comes down and it circulates back out again. But it's also coming this way and circulating out again. But it's like a 360 degrees. Okay, can you get that picture in your mind? So, but what's happening here, actually, I'm gonna get rid of this. So keep that in mind, what a toroidal field is. That's what I'm talking about, okay? And also where that thing is, where those two things meet, it's important to remember, like different color on this too. It's very important to remember that that's spinning as it's coming down through, right? So as this energy is coming in, it's spinning and then coming out. Okay, so it's kind of spinning all the way around. And so if you can picture like a tornado, a tornado is kind of a hurricane. So hurricane's kind of spinning, but there's like stuff that's kind of going up and then it's going back in, but then it's spinning down this center thing. But then as it goes out, it kind of slows down, but then it comes in the middle and it spins much more quickly, right? Can you picture that? Okay. So, what is happening? So let me give you a quick stick figure, okay? So let's say that this is not a very good one, but that's your brain, okay? And then you got your brain stem that goes down, and then you got your heart here. So, and facing that way, right? So we're looking at somebody's left side, okay? So this is their brain, and this is their heart. Now this is important, because a lot of people forget that the heart is very, very important and integral into the memory system. And in fact, there are a lot of studies that show that there's more, Bruce Lipton talks about this a lot, that there's a lot more information going from your heart to your brain than the other way around. And, check this out, down here, you have the gut, okay? And here you got your gut biome. So you got all those little dudes in there, right? And they're all kind of working together. So it's kind of a trifecta of things that are happening, okay? And because there's information that's in your gut about emotions and about feelings and sensations and places where you were and how you felt and all that kind of thing. That's all kind of stored here, right? And then within your heart, you've got the more like the emotions, like the happiness and the sadness and all that kind of thing. So those send two different kind of signals, and those go back up to the brain, right? And they go back up to the brain, and they say, hey, this is the thing that we're looking for. This is the part of the, remember when in the first part of this video where I said that a memory is kind of like an energy signature. It's like a hard drive that's looking for a certain pattern, okay? So it's not only the brain that's looking for that particular pattern. The information is processed within the brain, okay? But it's based heavily on information that's coming from the gut and from the heart, okay? So they give their information, and they're like, hey, this is the thing that we need you to process. This is the pattern that we need you to go and look for, right? So so it goes up to the brain, and it says, tweak this and start gathering this information, okay? But what's happening essentially is that within that toroidal field that's coming down here, okay, it is passing down through all of those centers, okay? And then it passes out back to the bottom and circles around. Passes out to the bottom and circles around, okay? So remember, I said that, let's use a different color so you can kind of see what I'm getting at here. But as it's coming in, it's coming in and then it's spiraling down. Okay? And it gets more complicated than that, but for the reasons of this explanation, I'm just going to say that that's for now, because there's also a sense in which it spirals back up again, but we're not going to get into that right now. So just keep in mind that when this energy is coming in, this is circling this way, but then, yeah, and then when this is coming in, this is sort of circulating in the other direction and then going out again, okay? And the whole time you've got information where these guys within the body need something, they grab their signal and they talk back and forth and they send a message up to the brain, and they say to the brain, hey, retrieve this information, okay? Now, what's important to remember, though, is that as this energy is coming down through the body, it's passing through the heart and it's passing through the gut, okay? And so as it's going through the information from the heart and the gut, what it's doing is it's sending that back up and saying, hey, this is significant. Write a program, write a code, okay? So as this thing is passing through, write a code so that we can retrieve that later. And the brain says, okay, cool. And it connects the little synapses and makes the connections in the brain, okay? So that when that's passing through, and that's where your short-term memory comes from. Like I can remember just moving right then, okay? Because it just happened. So all those emotions that are happening in my heart and in my gut, I'm gonna use the blue, and in my gut, just recently passed that through, and it came back up in here, and it's right there and readily accessible. You know, the things that I just did a second ago, okay? So that's what that is. Now, the further in time you get away, you know, because the brain is constantly writing and writing and writing and writing, okay? So there's different codes and things get kind of overwritten and they get overlaid, but then, and they get reassociated, and there's all these different kind of crazy links that happen there all the time. But that's essentially how you're retrieving information, okay? Because the energy signature. Now here's how this works though, okay? Is that within this, remember, this is a frequency. This is like a radio signal. So this isn't just a circle of energy. This is a radio signal frequency that's going all the way around. Just like the radio signals and frequencies that are coming out of, you know, your cell towers or FM radio waves or anything like that. You're cycling this through all the time, okay? So, but there's going to be like little high frequency things, then longer frequency things, and little higher frequency and longer frequency sorts of things. So it's, think of it, you can think of that as ones and zeros, you know, binary codes, you know, things like that. Or just like the different frequencies, like on a heartbeat, you know, where you're looking at the heartbeat and you say, you know, it comes along and it's like bump, bump, like that. Okay, so it's those signatures, but it's like the peak and the valley, and then this, and then the little peak in the valley, and all this other sorts of things. Like if you've done any audio editing, and you can see where like it's talking and it's doing that spiking. Okay, that's what this is doing. But what those spikes are is the memory being written into it. Now, drop the pen. Oops. Sorry. Stone cold sober, just clumsy. Okay. So that's how things are working on a short term. Okay? So that's how things are working on a short term memory. And when I say short term memory, I mean like the things that are processed in that immediate space are the things like, you know, I just tripped and I just dropped the marker and I remember that, like that just happened right now, and there's a familiarity. And one of the reasons, so do this experiment with me real quick, okay? So whatever it is that you're doing, if you're eating some popcorn, or remember me tripping a second ago, okay? There's a gut feeling that came with that, like, oh, he tripped, or oh my God, he's drunk, or whatever that emotion that was for you, okay? And then that came up into your heart, so your gut was like, and there was that tension, that feeling that kind of came with it. Your heart had a response to that, positive, negative. You wanted to laugh, you wanted to cry, you were worried, you were angry, you were whatever, you know, whatever that was generated within your solar plexus, okay? And those two things sent the signal to your brain and said, right, he just tripped. Write something, write a code so that we can remember that, okay? And because I'm talking about this right now, that's when the next interesting thing is going to happen, okay? Because, all right, I got to do another toroid, but I'm going to do this a little bit differently, okay? This one's a little bit tougher to imagine, but this is really important to understand. So, what I want you to think about is two different, another toroidal field, okay? But two different versions of reality, if you will. What this one is in the blue, this is, so when I did the earlier video about, you know, what is God and the female energy and all that sort of kind of thing, this is Gaia over here. Okay, so that is everything that's in the three-dimensional realm where we exist. It's all the things that you can see and touch and feel and all this other kind of thing, okay? And here you are. You're an individual little point on there, okay? This, and I'm only putting a line there for graphics. There's no actual line. It's completely infinite, okay? There's just like infinite information being processed through, right? Well, this is the unified field. This is the quantum, okay? So, and just like in this, you've got galaxies and mice and, you know, galaxy clusters and stars and me and Applebee's and like all that kind of stuff exists in the physical over in here, okay? Over on this side, it's all just the potential. It's all just the potential. So both of them are kind of, you know, chaotic and crazy, right? And it's also important to remember that this is, while I'm drawing this as two different things, they're completely intertwined. So go back to my other video where I talked about the like the nature of God and the masculine energy that's pushing through. So this would be the masculine energy, and it's pushing through an individual point over into the feminine side. Okay, so like I said, just for graphics, we're gonna say that there's a circle of non-reality and a circle of tangible reality. Okay, over here, and that's you. So that'll be it. That's you with a smiley face. Okay. Actually, no. Sorry. It's more accurate to draw like a profile. Okay? So that's the back of your head. There's your smile. There's your eyebrows. There's your happy eye, ears. Okay? And the reason I draw it this way is because this makes this easier to remember. It's not necessarily because this is how this thing works, but it's easier to visualize this, okay? Because what I want you to do right now is picture the back of your head. Not a photo that you've seen of it, right? But just like, as you're looking at this screen here, I want you to picture the back of your head. Tell me what you see. Hopefully, you see absolutely nothing. There's nothingness there, okay? So, you're looking out into Gaia, but all this information is here being processed, and it feels like it's coming from the back. It feels like it's coming from behind, okay? The reality is that it's all around, but it feels like it's coming from behind, okay? So, just like you have, a small toroidal field that is going, around you for your immediate short-term memory. And in the earlier part of the video, I mentioned how you've got the energy fields that go out like a foot and 3 feet and 9 feet and 50 feet, okay? All of those are keeping your memories within them as well, okay? So, say this one's your 1 foot, so say that's 1, that's 5, that's 9, and then over here is 50. Okay, so they're each different stages of like your long-term memory, okay, that you need to be able to retrieve. But what this is doing is it's storing all those memories within the unified field. Okay, so if you've ever taken psychedelics, or if you ever practiced meditation, or if you've ever had a dream, right? And things are kind of weird and crazy and chaotic, and they feel the same as a memory. So earlier I talked about the memory of your first day of school, and it's sort of like you can remember it, like you know what happened and you kind of picture it, but it's like looking at like a reflection. It's like looking through dirty glass. Like you know that it's there. There's different emotions. There's some kind of pictures, but it's not like me staring at this camera right now. Okay. And the same thing just a few minutes ago, I dropped the marker, and you remember that. But what's interesting though is that the quality, as far as like the graphic quality, with few exceptions, some people are different, but the graphic quality of that memory is exactly the same as the graphic quality of your first day of school. Okay? So, and that's part of what's happening with memory, okay? Is this here, this realm of the unified field is infinite potential. Like nothing has been made manifest. Nothing in here is real, okay? But as you're walking through, as you're moving around, as you are experiencing sorts of things, and as you're writing those codes out there, okay? What it's doing, what it's actually doing is recognizing that this is infinite chaos, okay? And so the computer code that you're writing as these things are coming out, and these are existing within the unified field. It's saying, hey, I know that all of this is completely random chaos, but what this code does is it takes that randomness and condenses it down into order, right? And that's like the yin and the yang, the masculine, the feminine, the order and the chaos, okay? So this is complete chaos with, you know, bits of order within it. This is complete order with bits of chaos in it. Does that make sense? Okay. So, so that's what's happening on an individual level, okay? Now, one of the things that's important to understand is that you've got, let's say you got Johnny over here, and you got Susie over here, and you got Tyrone over here, and you got Eddie, and you got Jill. Whatever, right? Each one of these people, I use green. I'm gonna, if the market stop arguing with me. Each one of these has a toroidal field. Every single one. Okay? Do the infinite thing. Okay. So let's say this is you. As you're moving around your life, and you've got your short-term memory. So you got short-term memory, sort of medium-term memory, long-term memory, and then maybe like deep memory. Okay? And those things get a little bit harder to access because they get lost more into the unified field. So there's a little more chaos in them. So it has to be something that's a very, very strong code to be able to retrieve it. Some people are good at that, and some people aren't so much. Or it has to have like a very strong emotional impact to be able to, you know, retrieve that constantly. And also that's a lot of where like things like PTSD come from, okay? Because it's something that's so emotional and so strong that even though it goes you're further and further away from the thing, it's still an incredibly strong memory and it can be brought back. But what do you notice about these things, right? All these energy fields, especially these two, they're overlapping, right? Interesting. So maybe, I'm not going to go down the road of psychic abilities, but I'll let you think about that one on your own. But what can start to happen though is, let's say, you know, Tanya and Timmy get married, and you know they have their toroidal fields that are overlapping. Okay. Now it's important to remember too that this is distinct from a computer program in that well, maybe there are more similar than that, but the memories as they're processing through you affect your physiology. They affect your body. They affect your habits. They affect the way that you see the world, the way you interact with the world. Okay, so let's say Tanya and Timmy, right? Timmy comes in and he's got like, you know, some trauma here. Well, it's gonna be affected and have gray areas out in this. So eventually, you know, the way that he behaves because of his trauma is gonna start to affect Tanya's life. Okay? Because it's not just the behavior, it's the actual energy of that is a vibratory signal that can start to affect hers. So that's the vibe that we're feeling. And if you're with somebody who's in a very low energy state and you're feeling that vibration, you're picking up on it, it's gonna do the same thing to you. Okay? Now, but Timmy doesn't just interact with Tanya. He interacts with, I forget her name, but whoever this girl is, and then she's going to interact with him, and then he's going to interact with her, right? And every time you have this interaction, a little bit of that vibration, a little bit of that memory kind of cycles through, and you pick up some of that vibe. I'm doing it to you right now, okay? Even though we aren't physically in contact, which is weird. So how the hell does that work? I'm glad you asked. So check this out. So what's going to happen? So if you imagine this is like a family unit, all these people are going to pick up similar things. It's all going to be different because they have their own different individual memories, and they have their own individual DNA and their own gut biome and their own everything. But their diets are going to be similar, and their experiences are going to be similar, and all those things are going to be similar. So the vibrations of that are going to be very, very similar. So what's going to end up happening is that there's going to be a lot of commonalities within a family. So now, take this then and say, you got family A, family B. What happens then? They've got their own thing. They've got their own thing. And it's going to be the same process. It's going to keep going and going and going. You know, because family A is going to interact with family B, and then they're going to get different things. And then, you know, family C is going to get involved. Right? And then next thing you know, you've got a town, community, neighborhood, a state. Right? Because all that kind of stuff is happening. And then, when you have state A, no, you know what? Let's go to nation. Nation A and nation B, because this is going all the way out. That's why the Americans have a culture, and the Canadians have a culture, and the British have a culture, and the Nigerians have a culture. That's what that culture is that individual toroidal fields that are like and blossoming out, swirling out to become that group of people. Drop the eraser. So, so that's what's happening here. Okay. Now, keep in mind, this may look familiar if you follow Tony Robbins, because Tony Robbins talks about the crazy eights. It's interesting. So you got country A, country B. If you're not, well, I'm not going to get into the crazy eights, but this is an interesting thing that happens. So you can imagine what would happen now if you go all the way back, and this is why I'm always saying that the individual is so important. You are critical to this whole thing. And this is why. That's you. That's you. That's your significant other. That's your mom, your dad, whatever. People you know, people that you come into, right? High vibrations, high frequencies overcome low frequencies. Let me give you a demonstration. Okay. There's a light switch, right? Watch this. Got dark. The camera adjusted. Got dark. Why does it get dark? Because the light is a frequency that's coming out, and it's a higher frequency than the frequency that exists within the darkness. So light cuts through into the darkness because it's a higher frequency, right? So if you go into a movie theater saying all the lights are off, well, wait, do this first. All the lights are on, right? And somebody stands over in the corner far away, but all the lights are on, and somebody lights a match and holds up a match. You're going to see it? Probably not, because all the lights are on. But now imagine that it's dark. Somebody lights a match. What are you going to do? You look right at it. That's you. And you're infecting all of that. And all you have to do is come from a place of love. And that's how that system works. Okay, now, there's a lot of other things with this idea. It ties into my theory of gravity and light and intention and how things come through from the unified field, into the physical realm. But I'm not going to get into all that right now. The important thing I want you to understand is how memory works, so that when you're thinking about your own memories, when you're thinking about your own trauma, right? Actually, let me touch on one last thing, okay? Because that's actually really important, especially if we're going to be doing the Atheist Teaches the Bible, because I'm going to start talking about the Lord's Prayer and the energy centers and the chakras and stuff like that, okay? So I'm going to go back to the individual, okay? So here's the brain, here's the heart, here's the gut biome, okay? Now, if you're familiar with the chakras, I'm probably going to mess this up, but you got your crown chakra, throat chakra, heart chakra, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so you got the 7, okay? And the colors are wrong, so forgive me, but whatever, okay? Now, part of what's happened, remember I said in the beginning that you got this toroidal field that's going around like this, okay? And I said that it's spinning, right? Each place where this is spinning, where it comes in, is where it's creating that wheel. So it's spinning in, and it's like, and then going down to the next one, and going down to the next one. So it comes in, it's like, goes into the next one, and down to the next one, and down to the next one, and down to the next one. Okay? That's what those things are. That's what's happening. Okay? So now, when you have, when you're developing as a human being, one of the things that starts happening, I'll do a whole separate video on this, but one of the things that starts happening is that you start developing your chakras, your energy centers, if you will, from the base, and then working your way up, okay? So you first start to manage these, and then you work your way up. But then it's like a constant cycle that happens all the way through your life, okay? So, and you think about this, like some of the first muscles that you gain control over, as an infant, are these ones, because you learn to sit up. And that takes all those kind of leg muscles to like roll over and to do that kind of stuff. You're getting control of those. You can't see it, but I'm wiggling my feet. You're getting control of those. And then you're sitting up and you're getting control of your abdominal muscles, right? And then you get control of your arms, and then you get control of your head a little bit more. And then that's good. And then you start down at the bottom again, you get control of your legs. You can kind of stand up and you're a little bit wobbly, and then you're kind of moving everything, and then you get a little more dexterity, and you start to see things a little bit differently. And then it's time to start potty training. So you're back down at the bottom, and you're going up and up and up, right? By the time you're in your teenage years, you're horny as hell. And then you're learning how to manage all those kinds of crazy things, and you're going up and up and up. Okay, so it's all the way that's happening all the way through your life, okay? Now what happens is, say you've got a 3-year-old who has a traumatic experience, daddy flips out and like throws something and screams at mommy, right? The 3-year-old is working on this. It's working on potty training, right? So this is why sometimes in life you'll see people that have sexual issues, bowel issues, urinary issues, reproductive issues, things like that. And a lot of it is tied to the fact that maybe they had some trauma when they were 3, and they were in a place where all they were doing, they were just, receiving this information. They were like a tape recorder, but they stored that trauma in here, right? And and there's different energy centers that signify different sorts of things, right? Okay, so if you're in a vocal place, if you're working on that vocal, the throat chakra, the throat energy center, and you're in that position in your life, and some kind of trauma happens, maybe you're like 6 or 7 years old, and you're getting good at speaking, you're getting good at communicating, you're getting good at reading, that's that throat chakra energy, and you're expressing yourself out into the world, and something traumatic happens. Guess what? You're going to be incredibly afraid of public speaking. You're going to have trouble communicating your emotions. You're going to have trouble communicating your thoughts. You may have trouble in school. You may, something like that. Or it could go the other way, where it amplifies it, and you suddenly become like an incredible singer, and you can't shut up. Like me. Okay? So, keep this in mind, because what's going to happen is when you start doing meditations, when you start going through clearing the energy centers, clearing the chakras, that's what that's about. Okay? Because in each one of those, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I know there's a lot more in there, but this is just for this. Okay? Each one of these can store a memory in it. Okay? So the memories aren't only stored in the brain. Okay? The brain is the thing that stores the code for retrieving the memory. Okay? So in that toroidal field, as it's going around, that's still spinning. So for me, for example, I've always had like weird sexual things and hang-ups, and my relationships have always been awkward and blah, 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 blah. It's always been strange. But it's because I was traumatized when I was about 6 years old. And I was at a phase when I was doing that. So I was probably in my middle chakras, somewhere in the lower to the upper chakras. I was like learning how to ride a bike, and I was doing this other kind of stuff. And I had some things that happened to me that were really traumatic. So I ended up storing them in these lower chakras, okay? And the reason I know that is because when I started doing meditations for doing clearings, when I would start to focus on those chakras, when I would start to focus on those energy centers, that's when I found those memories. I found them there. I'll get into that a little bit more. But, okay, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back down to the desk, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I hope that wasn't too much information for you. Alright, so I'm back. Hopefully that wasn't too much information for you. I think that there's a lot of different sorts of things to unpack. Like I said, that's why I'm not going to do anything today, showing the research or the studies that have gone into that kind of information, but I want you to have a pretty good understanding of how that system works, all right? Because as I start getting into more material and unpacking this, then that's going to be a really important concept to have in your head, all right? Now, let me give you a warning. This is a very serious warning. I really want you to take this seriously, okay? Do not take this stuff lightly, okay? When I was first learning this, I started doing some experimentation with meditation and with journaling, and trying to revisit some of the traumas, and I'll tell you about it in a whole different video, but things got weird, okay? So if you want to go and experiment with this, I mean, it's your body, your life, but I cannot stress highly enough the importance of finding a qualified counselor, right? So if you want to do some journaling, if you want to do that kind of work, that kind of shadow work, or anything, if you've got traumatic experiences that you know that you've got hidden in there, if you want to start doing meditations to try and find what's lurking down there in the shadows, be careful. Please be careful, okay? I did it without any counseling. I had no idea what I was doing, and I almost lost my life. I almost committed suicide because things got so dark. And so please, if you have something like that is that traumatic in your own life, don't do this without a wingman at best. Somebody who's there with you, some sort of trained professional who can help you with this kind of stuff, all right? But by all means, do the meditations, but I would definitely do some soul work. I can recommend the meditations by Dr. Joe Dispenza, where he does like energy cleansing and things like that, or the energy center cleansing meditations. But please don't just jump right into that, okay? It's really heavy, and if you're not familiar with the meditation, if you're not familiar with that practice, then the human mind can get pretty squirrely, okay? So think of your own mind as like a golden retriever, or maybe like a pit bull. It depends on your personality, but like a dog, a family dog. If you're good to it, you're kind to it, you're gentle with it, it'll be a loyal friend. But if you're brutal, it'll bite you. So be kind with yourself, be kind with the people around you. If you're not familiar with this kind of stuff, just like, if you get a stray dog or a dog from an animal shelter, and you are not a dog trainer, and you're not like very familiar with dogs and how to interact with them, it's best to send that dog to obedience school and take it to a professional. That's what you would do, and because you don't know what kind of damage the dog can do. Sorry, I just got a low battery warning. So please keep that warning, okay? It's very, very serious. And that's it. So, I hope you're doing well. I really do. I really hope you're doing well. Thank you for following me. Thank you for watching all that kind of cool stuff. Like, share, subscribe. Please? I love you. Talk to you later. Bye.